feel like things are good. If you watched the last episode with missionary Jake, that's maybe not a good way of putting his name. Jake Lambrecht, who's going to be going overseas here pretty soon. I had my own Jamie um, running things, and before I edited the very beginning, you may have noticed that I was not on the screen because Jamie forgot to put me on the screen. So it was like fitting in some way, I think. At any rate, even though I'm a little bit, harried as I always am, making sure everything's working, at least I'm in control and I can see what's working and what's not working, and it's working. Uh, we'll keep those toes crossed. So my name's Anthony Horvath. I'm the host of the Gutencast. I'm the owner of the online book retail site, gutenbookpress.com. You can go buy a whole bunch of books there. And also a publisher. One of our imprints is Guten Book Press, but we have other imprints as well, including a Thanatos Publishing Group. We publish, I bet you we publish about 300 titles at this point. I have about 30 authors. So if you are a writer looking for a publisher and you don't mind not making a whole lot of money, then join me, and we can both not make a lot of money together, but we can get your book out into the world and it'll be great. That's probably not the best way to self-promote myself, but keeping it real here on the Gutencast. But we have fun and we do our best. And this podcast is a way to promote the books that we publish and our authors. Today's guest is not an author, but a long time friend, one of my oldest friends at this point, given my age. I've known her for more than half my life. I'm just doing the math here as I sit. That's crazy. Wow. I'm really getting really, really old. And we have split directions geographically a little bit. And you know how it is when you don't live like right next to someone. You kind of like experiences diverge. And so we haven't kept up as much as any of us would have liked. So we might end up accidentally catching up more during today's podcast. But I know that she's a teacher. And I know that Charles Dickens is one of her favorite authors and that she's read almost everything. Maybe she'll say she has read everything. Every time you pound the desk, I hear a boing. Okay, OJ, I'm moving my hands away from the desk. Thank you for alerting me to the boing. I appreciate that. It's really, yeah. Where was I? You interrupted me. Oh, yes. So anyway, we might catch up a little bit accidentally as we are talking. But at this point, I would like to bring in our guest, Jill Wirz. Jill, say something. Let everyone know that I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Well, I can hear you. Well, see if everyone else can hear you.
Me? So can you see, like, is there like a chat room or something? Or
yeah, you sound good. So on the YouTube link itself, if you go and you look at it, there is a chat. So if you wanted to pull up, click on the YouTube link that I sent you, and if you look on the right side, or I guess wherever it is, the chat is open next to the podcast.
yeah, I don't see it. Anyway, no big deal.
I can refer comments to you if we have them.
Okay, good. Well, I can text OJ myself, but
oh yeah, sure.
I told him I thought he was talking about me.
Yeah. No comment. So, Jill, I think I'm going to let you do your own introduction because I do know that you've been teaching, but I don't know if you've been teaching continuously for the last 20 years. So why don't you tell us about yourself and what you teach and all that other good stuff?
I have not. Additional to going to school with you, Tony, Then we taught together. Did we teach all 4 years at Rockford Lutheran together? Did we start and end
No,
together?
I don't know
I know
if.
we all left the same year for sure. Like we all left in '01, but I don't know when
Yeah,
everybody started and stopped. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure. I think that I came in as the janitor
Oh,
in
that's
the,
right.
yes, in the
That's
year.
right. The kids thought it was so weird that the janitor was suddenly their theology teacher. That was
Right.
amazing.
Yeah. You
That's true.
just never can tell with people, can you?
That is
Yeah.
funny.
That was
No,
the year
so
that your first year of doing the service ministry, I think.
mm.
And there was a
Oh, yeah,
little
yeah,
bit of
yeah.
chaos.
Christian service or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, my first job out of college was teaching 6th grade down in DeSoto. I taught, most subjects. It was like, what do they call that? Enclosed classroom or whatever. Um, and then I got the job at Rockford Lutheran. I always wanted to teach theology. I majored in theology and English and secondary education. I won't name the professor, but he told me that women can't teach theology. I will name the professor that told me I can. That's Dr. James Jurgensen.
Huh.
And he made sure that I got all my requirements that I could teach theology. And then I got the chance. So
Hmm.
my old teacher and uh, principal, Don Courts, called me up there and I took that chance. And I loved it. But I never taught high school English. So I didn't teach high
Mm.
school English during that time. And then I moved back to Dallas. Didn't teach for a couple of years and then ended up getting in with like subbing in Lutheran schools. And then I ended up teaching 6th grade again. And I taught 6th grade for, I think, 3 full years. I did a little youth directing after that. That wasn't the thing for me. And then I stopped teaching. So I was out of the classroom and church, like hanging out with youth for about, I want to say like 8 years, like 2008 to, well, 2015. I had to jump through some hoops to get my certification back because I had mine in Wisconsin and I've kept mine in Wisconsin, by the way. So who knows? I may move back up there again.
Hmm.
Um, then I got the chance to teach at this really great charter school system in Texas called Responsive Education Solutions. It's a lot of classical schools all over Texas. Our CEO of our company is actually involved in lobbying for charter schools because hope nobody important is listening, but the Texas public school system is really horrible. Thank God they got rid of the DOE. So I got the chance to teach English, and I don't think I told them that I'd never taught high school English before. I think I just like let that slide. And so I was teaching high school English for the first time, and I fell in love right away. So I taught freshmen and juniors for a couple of years, and then for the last 8, I've been teaching English 1 and English 2. It's a science and technology school, actually, but my course is like the only classical thing about the school. So we do classic literature, and that actually begins my relationship with Charles Dickens.
Really? That's
Mhm.
interesting. I have a distinct memory from in college. You and now Joy Bull sitting
Jane.
at a cafeteria table, just enthralled with something that you had read in Shakespeare.
Oh,
And
Tom Loomis.
I was like, man, I never want to talk about Shakespeare in that way. That's
Dude,
like,
Joanna and I were the nerdiest of nerds. I have this memory, and like one of the things I ask my kid, which goes over their head, but I ask my kids sometimes, like, what do you wish you had like a screenshot of, or not a screenshot, a picture of, or a video of that you wish you could see again, but you're never going to see it. It doesn't really make sense to them because they have pictures and videos of everything that they do. But like, I would love to see me and Joanna in Tom Wilmus' class. No. This was actually, it was a linguistics class, but I think it fell into that Shakespeare class. But we had learned like what's it called? The International Phonetic Alphabet. Like we learned how to write in it, which looks like code. And we
uh-huh.
would write these notes to each other in linguistic code, like all the time. It was amazing. uh, Miss Joanna.
So, no Dickens then, though, in college?
So I was thinking about this tonight. Actually, I was talking to our dear friend Paul Wessling tonight,
Ah,
and I was trying to think of if I'd read Dickens before. I mean, like I know I'd read like a kid's version of Oliver Twist,
yeah.
and obviously A Christmas Carol, so I knew all about that. But I was like, what did I read first? And Paul and I think we read Hard Times. I think that was my introduction into Charles Dickens, which is a novel that's really kind of about the Industrial Revolution and kind of
Hmm.
what that meant for poor people and children, and exposes a lot of that. So, and I'm pretty sure I liked it. But then I think I always considered Dickens too difficult. Like it's like one of those like it's Tolstoy or Dostoevsky, which by the way I love those two now. But
Hmm.
like I didn't feel very I don't know, confident in reading that kind of literature. And now I have ways to overcome that. I mean, when you're not being taught it, it's kind of difficult, like poetry. But and I teach my students because they're going to have to go to college and their professors are going to want them to learn stuff. And my smart ones aren't going to use AI to try to figure everything out. So like I have methods for going through and getting yourself taught by the internet, but getting yourself taught on
Hmm.
those things. But yeah, so
Okay.
so Hard Times was my first, but then um, when I came in to teach English one in 2015 and knew that I had not taught English before, so I had no curriculum, and they didn't have a curriculum written, which actually I love. I love writing my own curriculum, but they didn't have anything, so I just took what the teacher did the year before. And I just worked with that, and she did Great Expectations, and so I read that. And Great Expectations is just an amazing, amazing novel. Um, I'm gonna venture. I don't teach it any. Eventually they wrote a curriculum for us, and now I have to use that. But I'm writing my own for my seniors this year, and we're gonna revisit Great Expectations. So I'm really excited about that.
It's been, I was trying to do some math in my head. I think probably 30 years since I've read Dickens. And I think it was Great Expectations, with the exception of A Christmas Carol, which I've read more recently.
Mhm.
And it seems wrong. Like someone who likes to read as much as I do would have read so little of someone who is just like everyone says he's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I know he's great. I've read enough of like excerpts or whatnot, and I remember liking Great Expectations. But he's actually, I don't know, he's got like 30 or 40 books, right? I mean, he's
Mm, I mean, he's got no, because it's on one shelf in my classroom. It's a lot of short stories. So, like, if you're looking
okay.
through a list, there are gonna be a lot of those are gonna be short stories.
Okay.
But he's got, I mean, it's a list of novels, but it covers one, yeah, one. Well, let me count. I mean, one, two, three, four, five. I mean, I don't have my novels here, but I'm looking
Okay.
at the same kind of shelf. Maybe like 15 major novels.
Yeah, aren't they like 1,000 pages each?
No, not all of them. And also, once he visited the United States, he
Right.
started writing a lot of nonfiction to trash. Like a lot of Europeans who come visit here in that time would like just
Uh,
totally to trash the United States and our whole system. Doesn't help that I think his train accident was here actually. I think when he got
oh yeah.
like was in the train, I think that was 1873. So I think that was over here. He didn't die then, but like he got that might have been part of it. Trashy train
So
system.
we have the definitive answer by our internet researcher here. 15 novels, five
Hey, it's got
novellas.
15. See?
Yeah, I
That's
told you you're an expert. And
a good guess.
hundreds of short stories and nonfiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have not read the short stories.
Okay, well then we'll just call you a near expert then. A
Yeah.
real
Well, okay.
expert would have done the short stories too.
So here's what happened about an hour before we started here. Can I cuss on the show? I'm not
Yeah, it's
planning
fine.
to, but
It's
it
fine.
happens.
Yeah.
So Paul Wessling called me. He's mad at me because I saw a good friend of ours from high school yesterday that he wishes he could see. And so we were chatting. And so I was telling him about this podcast. And Paul goes, what was that Jesus one he wrote? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Dickens never wrote a Jesus novel. He goes, no, no, no. Yeah, he did. There was like a movie. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, he goes, the guy who wrote Christmas Carol, right? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, yeah, no, he wrote something for his kids. And I'm like, you're an idiot. Like, there's no way. Damn it. I Googled it. And
Uh,
apparently Dickens wrote, and this is why there are probably so many because they weren't published. Like
right,
Dickens wrote for his children a short story called The Life of Our Lord, which apparently Paul says there's a movie for now, and only like read it for his children. And the family like held a lot of those show, stories close because, they were theirs.
right.
And I think it was 85 years, which I think
Wow,
about it'd be like in the 60s or 70s or 80s now. Like then that got published.
finally
So I'm
got
like,
out.
damn it, I got to give Paul Westling credit for knowing more than me about Dickens.
Yeah, well, you should give him a hard time for not being on my podcast yet, because he was there at the beginning, and yet he has not been on.
Like
Just a
oh yeah.
yeah, just a viewer. Now Tara says hello. So far, this is a the viewers are all people who are part of our circles. So
Hey.
feel free to cuss as much as you like.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, I
So
posted this and I have former students on my Facebook. So like I don't know.
well, it's recorded. People will see it later. It's fine. Yeah. So I like the fact that you mentioned Dickens as one of the possibilities. Asking you for a podcast topic is like asking my wife where she wants to eat for dinner. Um,
Can I tell you
y-
the problem?
yeah, sure.
You ask me late at night when my mind's just going like a million miles and I'm like thinking of everything. That's the problem. Well, all of
Yeah.
our conversations, not late, but all of our conversations have been like in the twilight hours when like I'm thinking of everything.
Uh huh. Yeah. Whatever. I know you'd be the same no matter what. I think that what we should have done to begin with was just have your husband choose. I mean, he would
Choose
know,
what?
right?
My
Well, yeah,
topic?
yeah. Don't
Oh,
you
heck
think?
no.
No. Well, I thought, well, he would know you
Oh, heck
best, right?
no. No, I won't even I made him leave the house. Like he's at the
Oh,
brewery. Like I can't even let him stay.
that's hilarious.
I need you
All right.
out.
So anyway, we're talking about Dickens, um, because this is we've talked about a lot of things on this podcast, but I'd like to come back around to books because it's sort of the thing. And Charles Dickens has been good for me in a lot of ways. I publish A Christmas Carol, and I'm gonna pull up. I have a picture of it here. Uh, if you have purchased this book in the last 6 years, if you have purchased A Christmas Carol in the last 6 years, there's a very good chance that you bought my edition.
Awesome.
We've done tons and tons and tons of them. It's been, I really like A Christmas Carol. um,
So
yeah,
don't get offended if I say things you already know, but one of the fun things about A Christmas Carol, there's another short story called The Chimes. There's another short story called I can't think of it. Yeah, so it used to be a tradition. I love this to write scary stories at Christmas. Like
hmm,
that's where A Christmas Carol comes from. Like that was a tradition to write, which is weird because like we think Halloween you'd write a scary story, but it
right.
was like part of the entertainment at Christmas time to write a spooky story. So Charles Dickens actually has a bunch of spooky stories that surround Christmas time, and Christmas Carol is one of them. Obviously, the most popular.
That that's interesting because I read something from G.K. Chesterton today about Dickens, and he made a comment about it was about A Christmas Carol in particular, and he made a comment about how uh, what did he call it? The grotesque often features in some of these traditions, but Dickens did it in a way that was almost sanctifying. But
Well, and I wonder too, since it's Christmas and you want to remind people what Christmas is about, you might show them the bad.
Yeah.
like the negative so we can see how positive we have it.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's just have you share a little bit about Dickens. Like, start wherever you think is good, and tell the world about Dickens and why you think he's so great.
Okay, so what happened was in 2015, I had to teach this class. And so I'm not going to teach anything I don't know. And I didn't know Great Expectations. So I read it really fast. I read it really fast in the summertime. Like I think I got the job in beginning of July and I had to start in August. So I read all the novels. Like I read all of them really fast. So that I'd have some background. And then when my students studied it, I read it with them at the time as well. So I'd have some background. So I'm pretty sure it was my first freshman class, and I made them read every word. We really enjoyed it. One of the things that I've always wanted to emulate as an English teacher is I had English teachers who, when I procrastinated and did not do the reading, and I came to class and they started talking about the novel, they made me want to go home and read it. Like
Uh,
those are the kinds of English teachers I had. And so I've always wanted to be that guy. Um, and so we would talk about the novels in class. And one day, and my kids are pretty eager. And one day, one of my students, did you say I can't name students? Because they're like 30 now or 40
well,
now.
yeah, I think if they're old enough, yeah, that's fine.
His name is Aaron Martinez. He's serves our country in the United States
Okay.
Forces. But he in class, because kids, they just, and I I was going to say I used to love this. I actually still love this. Everybody thinks that it's bad for kids to have technology in the classroom, and it's so good if they know how to use it. And they don't, and that's why we've gotten rid of phones in the classroom. But I always find the kid who, whatever I say, whatever's coming out of my mouth, if I say like, oh, I think it was this guy, and they'll be like, and they'll tell me the answer. Like, I love
Right.
that. And so I'm talking about Dickens, and we were actually talking about the TV show. I never watched. Well, I think one of my daughters made me watch it, but Once Upon a Time. And if you're not familiar with that TV show, the idea is that it's like all of the fairy tale characters, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, whatever. They all like live in this town, and it's like a story. It's like a different story, but it involves all the characters. So one of my students discovers that there's a TV show from Great Britain called Dickensian, and it's like a show with a town, and it's all the characters from Dickens. And I'm like, oh my god, that sounds awesome, but I haven't read all of them, so I don't want to watch a show if I don't know who. Like, I think I started watching it, but I was like, I don't know who these people are. And thus began my great quest to read everything by Charles Dickens. So I always read a lot of books at one time, but one of the books I was always reading was a Dickens novel. And it took me 5 years because I don't think they're all 1,000 words, but they're all pretty long. And while I read a lot of books, I read them slowly because I just, my ADD, I can only read a little bit at a time. So anyway, so I read through everything. And so today, preparing for this, I went to look at like the Wikipedia, like the works, and like just to remind myself like what each one
Mm-hmm.
was about, what my takeaway was. There's some I do not remember at all.
Mm.
One of them is Barnaby Rudge, but I did read them all, but I'm like, and I even like read the synopsis, and I'm like, did that just all go right over my head?
Yeah.
So there's some that are like, I mean, I like my quest. If I ever go for my master's, it will be in British studies with an emphasis on Dickens. And so I know that wasn't a waste of time or anything. But yeah, so I read through everything. And one of the interesting things about Dickens novels is that, well, if you read everything, he has stock characters. Like you'll find the same characters in all of his books. I think scholars call it the 3 V's. He's got the victim, the villain, and the vindicator. So the
Mm.
victim is usually like an orphan, Oliver
Right.
Twist, Pip, and Great Expectations, usually like somebody who's lost their parents or whatever. Um, and then the villain, like the bad guy that does the bad things. And then just usually a rich white guy, old white guy, comes in at the end and just sweeps
Uh,
the orphan up and takes care of them forever.
uh,
So that's kind of fun to look for, you know? Like one of the things I've gotten into recently is reading novels that have been made from classics. Like I've read a bunch of King Lear based novels. I just recently read um, a Hamlet one. I got Dana to read it. It's called the story of Edgar Sawtale, or the tale of Edgar Sawtale. It's all Hamlet. And when you know the work, the other work, the classic work, and then you get to like look for things like, oh, I wonder how they're going to do the mousetrap scene, or I wonder, you know. So with Dickens, and by the way, I'll associate this with my favorite movie director, which is Wes Anderson. Wes Anderson, he did like Fantastic Fox, Royal Tenenbaums. He just recently did the Phoenician Scheme that won a bunch of, or that's going to win a bunch of awards. Anyway, but he has like, they call him his trademarks. Like he's always going to have this thing. Like he's going to have the shot that comes from above. He's going to have the
mhm.
pan of the camera. You know, he's always going to have those things. So when you read one guy for 5 years, like you get into, but that's the problem with why I don't remember a lot of them, because if you have the same stock characters
Right.
throughout,
Yeah.
you're like, wait, who's the villain in this one? Because you'll like
Yeah.
mix them up or whatever. So anyway.
How do you feel about all these remakes that basically just repurpose the classics? I mean, does
Man,
it
if you
make?
if you
Yeah.
do it good, if you do it good. Um the most recent one was Demon Copperfield by Barbara Kingsolver. She's the one who wrote Poisonwood Bible. Um, really famous for that. And that took David Copperfield and made it and set it in it kind of reminded me actually of J.D. Vance's book, because it's set in like that Kentucky, whatever, mining town
Hmm.
area where there's a lot of drug use and presentish day. Um, and so David Copperfield, which is Dickens' most autobiographical novel. I mean, he shows up in all of his novels, but his most the one that goes through a lot of his life is David Copperfield. And so that was really good. I think it won the Pulitzer or whatever. So that one was, in fact, the
Yeah,
ones I'm
but
thinking of all have won big awards.
not to argue with you, but like, why not just read David Copperfield then? Why read the remake?
I mean, I don't know, like exactly what I said, like Hamlet. Everybody, well, I mean, I think a lot of people know
I'm
Hamlet.
tired of seeing Hamlet remakes. I know how it's gonna end.
Yeah, but
It's
how is the brother gonna kill the brother, and how
it
is
just
the king
seems
gonna... Wait,
it
wait, wait.
seems
Okay, now you got me on this because I have to tell you about Tale of
okay.
Edgar Sawtelle.
All right.
I don't want to ruin anything for anybody, but you know, Hamlet, he's the Prince of Denmark or whatever, and his uncle kills his father, and then the father comes back as a ghost. Um, he reveals to Hamlet what happened, like he poured like poison in his ear. And so then, like at one point in the play, Hamlet has like the actors play out exactly what the uncle did in front of the uncle to basically tell him that he knows, like, I know what you did. So Edgar Sawtelle, the book Tale of Edgar Sawtelle is about a family. Same thing. Dad dies, shows up as a ghost, but in a different way, because in the Tale of Edgar Sawtelle, this family is from Wisconsin. You'd like all of Wisconsin references from Wisconsin, and they have this dog breeding business that's generations old. There's not even a breed for the name for the breed, because it's just they call them Sawtell dogs, or just their dogs. And so the dogs, they train dogs, breed and train dogs. And so the son trained the dogs to play out the murder, like to actually like carry something in their mouth and like stab it into the
Uh-huh.
leg or whatever. It was
Yeah.
amazing. It was awesome. And some of the characters uh in that are from Hamlet in the book are the dogs. Like at some point I realized, sorry, I don't mean to ruin this for anybody, but at some point I was
Yeah,
like,
it's ruined.
my God, that dog's Ophelia. Like Ophelia was one of the dogs. Like, ah. So that, I don't know, it's fun if you know the work. And they're not like, I don't know, like I don't know if I would be comfortable. Well, no, I would actually. If I could write a cool story retelling The Little Prince in my own way, I think that'd be so much fun. But you have to be knowledgeable to do it. So like it's not like
Right.
you're skimping on creativity because you're stealing somebody else. I mean, None of Shakespeare's plays were his idea. None of them. Romeo and Juliet goes back to 1500 BC to like some other Greek playwright who wrote a tragedy that sort of had some of the elements, and then some French guy, or no, Italian guy got that and then wrote an
Uh-huh.
Italian version and set it in Verona, and then some other guy. But you can see in Romeo and Juliet, you can see elements of every one of the iterations. Like this they got from that. Like the friar telling her to go to a convent was from this version or whatever.
Oh,
So like
okay.
Shakespeare didn't write it. He didn't come up with any of those ideas. He
All
just was
right.
awesome
All right.
at
You make
iambic
a
pentameter. What?
Yeah, you make a strong argument. And just before I forget, Tara says hello, and I don't actually remember now when you were talking when OJ asked if they were drinking brandy old fashions. But since you can't see, I thought I would relay that.
This is a sour from our. Just kidding. It's not. It's sparkling ice with nothing. Well, I do have lemon juice in there.
I think I'll reframe my question because I see what you mean, and it's a little bit different when you take the themes of a classic, or even if you follow it closely and remake the story. I'm thinking of more of like how we have like 20 different Spider-Man movies,
Mm.
and it just makes me wonder if at some point they they recognize that there's a formula, and they really only just want to make money,
Yeah.
and so they just repeat the formula over and over again. They're not paying homage to it in any way. They're just
Yeah.
exploiting us, and
Although
they're
I do blow my kids' mind when I explain to them the hero's quest that every one of their superhero movies just follows the cycle, the
yeah.
hero cycle. You know,
So do you think that's different, what I just described?
I
20,000
do.
Spider-Man movies?
I do only because when I'm doing creative writing with my students, and I fear this is going to become worse. Um, like they don't have their own ideas. Like they legitly don't have their own ideas. Like they just have the last comic book they read or the last video game they
Mm.
played or whatever. Like that's, and they don't read really like for fun or for themselves. So yeah, that's my difficult job, is to show them just all this amazing stuff that's out there that they're never going to see if they only play video games and read comic books, you know. But when they have to write a short story, like I always really emphasize that they can't use it has to be original. So original, they can't use any other characters, which kills me because there's a really great book called Broken by I can't think of the but it's a retelling of To Kill a Mockingbird, and it's set in England, and it's set present day, and it's super freaking dark, and it's amazing. Like it's so great. So I really I like that, but my kids, they can't really do it. They can't do
Mm.
it. Their minds are too filled with flashing things, and um, so I don't. So I agree with you there. Like that's just that's not creative. Like what I'm talking about is very creative.
Yeah.
Like blows my mind creative.
Yeah. It's a fair distinction, I think.
Mm.
So of the Dickens books, you have a favorite. I asked you what it was. I had never heard of it before.
Of course.
I know. I feel bad.
I didn't do that on purpose. I swear I didn't do that on purpose. I did not do that on purpose. I immediately thought of Great Expectations and Tale of Two Cities. I mean, they're such great novels. Great Expectations, man. It's just for the reason why Dickens is fun for a lot of readers is he's so thoughtful, makes connections that you can trust are going to mean something. Like and Dostoevsky and Tolstoy do the same thing, where if that character entered that scene and then went away, he's coming back. Like
Mm.
you're going to see that guy again. And so for a good reader, it's just worthwhile. Like it all just like wraps up in the end in a really beautiful way. And um, Dickens is really good at the surprise, but it's not a surprise if you know his trademarks. But like it's the surprise that this person's gonna. There's a novel called Our Mutual Friend, and there's like this guy that they're all expecting to come home. It's this rich guy's son, and he doesn't show up for the party. He's our mutual friend, and then a body is found. So of course, that you're supposed to think that that was the body, and then it's like who did the murder and blah blah blah. And but then this random guy shows up with a slightly different name. And so you know that in the end it's like, oh, he's that guy. Yeah, so like that, but that's going to happen in all the novels. But so it's easy to, and Tale of Two Cities is just everybody should read that novel. It's you've got the French Revolution, does the same thing where it connects people up in a really cool way. And it's just, yeah, it's one of those that you should read. But Dombey and Son, I promise I didn't. Did you see my original description on Facebook that I changed? I just,
Of today's podcast.
yeah, yeah, I had a description and then I went back and edited it.
I I don't know which I
Okay,
saw.
okay. Well, I'll tell you what I said, and then I changed it because I'm always thinking who sees this might not understand what I mean, and I might look bad. Um, so my description was, "Hey, I don't necessarily think Dickens is the greatest writer or whatever, so I won't be defending that." Blah blah blah. But what I had in there was, I don't necessarily think Dickens is the greatest writer or whatever. What with the sexism, racism, and misogyny and all, like that was what I originally had in there.
Yeah,
Because then I'm going to say good things about him, and I'm
right.
sure somebody would get offended by
Y-
that. But
Yeah, I didn't see
um,
that.
the very cool thing, so there's lots of racism, there's lots of sexism, there's lots of misogyny in all of these novels. As there are, I didn't say race. I actually said anti-Semitism. Like so the
Yeah,
racism is anti-Semitism in this book, in all of his books. And I don't mean to give anybody a pass, but he's just reporting the times.
yeah, right.
Like
Yeah,
it's just what it is. Um, and so so when you're reading it, I love talking to kids about this because anytime we read something and it's shocking, I'm like, good, that should shock you.
hmm,
Like, the N word coming up in To Kill a Mockingbird. If that makes you uncomfortable, good. I don't want to hear you say it, but good. That
yeah,
word should make you feel uncomfortable. That tells me you're human.
hmm,
Anyway, um, so Dombey and Son is a book really about misogyny. Sorry, let me say it this way. It's a book exposing misogyny. And it's a really like sneaky way because the first of all, it's really sweet. It's very heart as he has a lot of really heart wrenching things in his novels. So it's really sweet, like almost heartbreaking, especially if you have a daughter who really loved your dad. But Dombey and Son is about this rich guy who has a business. I think it's like a shipping business, and he has a daughter, but then he really wants a son to be able to carry on his business. And so he has a son and the son dies. And then I think he kept trying to marry women to get sons. And he just like kept overlooking his daughter. And his daughter was like the one true person to him. And so in the end, he does realize that. So I love the title. The title is Dombey and Son, and it's about
hmm,
Dombey and daughter,
hmm,
and it really exposes that that thing that probably happened all over the place. And I don't think Dickens ever like outright said, see, we should honor women better, but the
right.
novel says it,
Yeah.
So I really, that's my favorite. It's also really sweet. It's got a lot of sweet moments in it.
So the culture of England as the Industrial Revolution unfolded, it's a really interesting thing to look at by contrast to like where we are today. Like today, we are a hypersensitive in England, absolutely, but even here, right? Like you're referring to about them finding things shocking in what they read. But at the time, the English were coarse, rough, brutal. They're just
Yeah, they weren't proper.
yeah. I mean they hated the Irish. They colonized and brutalized vast swaths of the world, right? It's just hard to imagine that those people are the people that we see today. What it's sort of a tangent. It's maybe not Dickens at all, but have you ever thought about how that unfolded, and like, do you have an explanation for it?
What do you mean, like the difference between
How do they
how they
become?
would have been perceived back then and how they're perceived now?
Yeah, well, how they were then, and the irony, right, is they view themselves at the time as civilized, right?
Well,
Like,
aren't they the same as everybody else, though? I mean, we had some barbarism here, before government took over and regulated.
okay, well, so maybe we'll let the English off the hook for a minute and just talk about, you know, all of us. Has wokeism been good for us? Are we better off for it?
Oh, um, whoa! I didn't, I
Oh,
didn't,
well,
I didn't see
is
us
this
turning
too?
that corner.
Sorry. Well, I did tell you that I tend to open my mouth and I don't know what comes out. So,
I mean, like, okay, so I've read a lot about um, colonization stuff in the last few years. I read a really good book called Empire Land, which talks about all the colonization, all the confiscation of things. It makes me like not want to go to museums because I'm gonna wonder who got murdered for them to get that thing. Um, and but I don't know. I just kind of had the logical side of me of like, didn't everybody conquer? Wasn't but that was just a thing. Like
yeah,
you want
yeah,
to get your land to be bigger.
sure.
I don't. I guess I feel like that's why I say weren't we all the same? Like, what didn't we all do that?
Okay.
Our
All right.
Native
Maybe we'll,
American.
yeah, maybe we'll come back around to that if I think of a better angle to extract something out of you.
Yeah, I don't know
So,
what you're going for there, man.
yeah. So, what's your, you said that's your favorite, but so like, why is it your favorite? Like, is it, I mean, you told us what it was about.
Yeah,
We got that, but like, why do
it's
you like it more than the others?
well, because of what I said, like it's the novel that exposes misogyny and tells it for what it is, and like I said, without saying it, he exposes it, that it's not right or whatever. No reader is going to get a different understanding of that when they finish the novel, when they see the relationship between the dad and daughter. Um, the daughter is written really well, and just her. It's not one of the three V's, but you always have just really steadfast characters and great expectations. It was oh, she has a kind of an ugly name. Eliza's uh, uh, what's it called? Foil, character foil. Nellie, Nitty, again, Libby. I don't know. Anyway, but like just these good, steadfast characters, and that's Dombey's daughter. And so she watches and waits for her dad's approval. Um, and just for him to even turn towards her and see that she's still there. And so like in movies like that or books like that where the maker wants to tug at your heart, it just does.
Mhm.
And then you also get the satisfaction of seeing that resolved in the end. Like I don't see a lot of movies because I don't like just like really manipulative movies that are just trying to like give me a car chase and a love scene and a fist fight and a
Right.
whatever. Like I don't like that. I don't like being manipulated like that. um so I mean, I guess it's kind of the same thing, but the writer wants you to feel something, and I think Dickens accomplishes that. I
So
don't
do
know that
you,
I've ever. Sorry.
well, do you think then the fact that I had never heard of it is sort of like history's judgment on how they feel about that topic?
I mean, you know better than anyone that there's a lot of crap that gets out there and is called good,
Yeah.
just because they've got a line to a publisher, an agent, or whatever.
Right.
The ones that are popular of his were popular with a lot of people, and so that's why they got, I don't know, shoved up there. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it didn't do well. I've never like read any of the ratings.
Yeah. I'm not
like
sure
like
either.
like when they were, because they're all published serially, so like I don't know if like newspapers had like ratings like that this episode did this well this week or whatever. Like I don't know if or how that happened.
G.K. Chesterton, when I mentioned that I found an article he wrote about it. Have you read a lot of G.K. Chesterton at all?
I hope Dana's not on here because she'd like punch me in the face. But I've read one and I
Oh
hated it.
no.
One that I read a lot of essays. Like his what's it called? A Piece of Chalk, I think, is one of my favorite essays to teach my students. But yeah, I read a book and it was terrible. It was like a mystery. It was like a mystery novel. It's like the
Really?
man who something. It was terrible. I'll
Wait,
find it.
no. The Man Who Was Thursday?
Yes,
You did not like that one?
that sucked. Where did those elephants come from? Like that was so random. Like, and then the elephants came in, and then we were saying, like, what? That's so weird.
I love that book. I really love it. It's like one of my top 5.
Wait, top five GK Chesterton or top five of all time?
I
Please don't
don't
say of
I
all
don't want to
time.
answer that right now. So anyway, G.K.
Where
Chesterton.
did the elephant? No, no. Now you need to answer. Where do those elephants come from?
Well, I don't remember the elephants. So,
The the
I'm
the
hoping we're
the
talking about different books.
dude.
So
No, it's like all the
anyway,
guys where they all had a different name, and then they figured out that they were all not in on
no,
the
you
joke.
can't give it away. Coverage, no. Spoilers. S- No. No, that's
There were
the
elephants. That's all I'm saying. There were elephants.
apparently he was Chesterton was a well-known thorough critic of Dickens. And I didn't even know that. He'd written
So was
extensively on it.
George Bernard Shaw.
What was that?
What?
What?
I
No.
said so was George
Oh,
Bernard Shaw
so
was
is.
also
Okay,
a
yeah, I
big
thought you were
critic.
correcting me. Well, he
Yeah.
did all we had all this prelude. All I wanted to do was like pull out one observation about from Chesterton. He said that the man's most popular work is indicated that it's his most quality work too. Like the two are the same, and I think he thought Our Mutual Friend was that.
Really?
I'm trying to find it while we're talking here.
Our Mutual Friend is a really fun novel. I think I told you in whatever messaging we were doing that one of the things I like about Dickens is what he does with names. Like if I was like starting a band, I would pick up some Dickens novels and look for characters in there because they just have some great names. In fact, the one of the villains from David Copperfield is Uriah Heep, and there is a band called Uriah Heep. But anyway, I always teach. There's this cup. One of the fun things that shows up, which I don't think is really a Shakespeare trademark, but it like so fits with today. I'm really a big fan of scam podcasts. I really like seeing bad people get what's coming to them,
Yeah,
basically.
right.
But so I listen to a lot of that stuff, and now scamming is just off the charts just because of how easy everything is. I don't think it's a trademark of Dickens. These two characters that show up in and my point about the names is that sometimes the name fits the like he's got a character in a novel called Crook with spelled with a K, but Crook. But in Our Mutual Friend, there's this couple named the Veneers. And I always tell this story to my kids when I'm teaching them that word. Like the outside facade, looking good from the outside. And so they were called the Veneers and they were total scammers. Like they were trying to play themselves off as these rich people. And so they were like going to all these society things and but they can never get the scam going and so they can never get money and then it's like I would like to read a story about the Veneers. See, I could write a story about the Veneers.
There you go.
So they so then they turn against each other because the husband's expecting the wife to get the scam happening and the husband's and vice versa. And yeah, so I love when he does stuff like that where I don't know if you remember teaching when you would you have dry humor, quite dry humor, right? And I'm sure that showed up in the classroom. One of the most fun moments for a teacher is when you say something that's a little bit highbrow, but it's funny, and you
Hmm.
can see the
Right.
two kids that are
Yep.
there, and they're like,
That's
they're
right.
like laughing, right? So I feel like Shakespeare does that with his novels too. Like I don't know that anybody thinks about the Veneers from Our Mutual Friend like I do. Like I'm
Hmm.
fascinated with that couple just because it was so fun to watch them try to be all scammy.
So the your least favorite one was Bleak House.
Well, you heard
Wh-
the name, right?
Yeah, which again I hadn't really. I think I had actually heard of that one, but like I knew nothing about it. Like
Have you
so,
ever read The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, or do you know what it's about?
I know. Yeah, it's like the city life. Yeah, it's.
But it's the one that the book itself revolutionized or changed the slaughterhouse system, like because it
Hmm.
exposed like what was really happening with that.
Right.
So it was like a book that was written, but that ended up changing something. Bleak House is the same. Bleak House is a book that was written, and it's really kind of about the slowness of the court system, just like how bullshit it is. Sorry. Like just how just it's all like red tape and like trying to get stuff through the court system. So it's basically about like people trying to get their inheritance or whatever.
Mm.
Um, so, and for me, the boringness of the book is the point of the book. Like it's just so slow. Like, and that's kind of and by the way, it did revolutionize the court system in England after that book came out because people are reading and going, "Hey, it shouldn't be this way," you
Hmm.
know. And so it's kind of meant to be that way. Like that's kind of the whole point. But it's really boring. You sit through a lot of court things that are just like big court words and legalese, and you're just like it's going on and on and on. Um, and there's a little story that you're supposed to be paying attention to, but it's just not that interesting. Like I don't know if okay, I have to confess, this is the dumbest thing about me. I hope I watch Real Housewives shows. I don't know why. I think it's like a zoning out thing for me, you know.
Uh,
And I don't even know if you know what I'm talking about, but
well,
occasionally two of the characters will have an issue, and I've got some very smart girlfriends that also watch, and we'll be talking about it. Like, I just don't care. Like they're making this big issue about this thing, and I don't care. Like I just don't care. I should be saying that about all of it, but there's just certain things I really don't care about. So Bleak House is gonna like just it'd be better if you cared, and but I don't care. Like
uh,
even the main characters that have a little backstory and even a sweet backstory, I just don't care. I don't care enough to make the book good.
do you think that his books served in any way as a catalyst for changing of the British culture and by extension other cultures?
Well, the court system, yeah, like that's well known that after that book came out, like people started seeing the how shitty their system was and that they needed to
Sure.
change all that stuff.
Well, what about like the misogyny stuff of or the way that kids were treated in
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
factories
yeah.
and stuff?
That would be his autobiographical novel. Yeah, yeah. I didn't even think about that. Hard Times, which is mostly about the Industrial Revolution. It really zeroes in on that, and then David Copperfield also. I don't know specifically. Uh, I mean, I think a lot of people knew it was wrong. The
Hmm.
child labor laws and all that kind of, or labor and all that. Um, so it probably exposed it, but I bet there are lots of books that were exposing that at the time. I like now we have books that are, teaching us about what we're living in right now and what we need to change. A lot of sci-fi. Now I read a lot of sci-fi novels that just are exposing what the heck is wrong with us. Or I don't know if you've ever watched the show Black Mirror. That's another one where they're just cautionary tales about if we keep going the way we're going,
I,
this
I
is
was
this is
only
how
able to watch the first episode.
of the first season.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's so good. I
Well,
can only wa- I can't watch a bunch. I can't really binge anything. Like I get too bored. But like that specifically, like when I watch one episode, I have to like
well
sit
that
back for a
that one
while.
had the pig in it, right? Am I
I can't
thinking
remember.
of the same show? Like the British politician
Oh
and
yeah,
some.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
That was,
So I just it's one that like hmm,
it wasn't about President Trump. He just played right into it. It wasn't. I think it was before. I think that was like before he
no,
even.
like I did after I watched that episode, I was afraid to watch the other ones.
Oh,
Like I agreed with the assessment and the critique, but
yeah,
I didn't need to be persuaded enough to like expose my like dirty my mind. I don't know how to
yeah.
I don't need to wallow in it to use a pig
The first one
analogy.
I watched wasn't the first one, and I don't know. I think I accidentally watched till they all stand by themselves. They're like Twilight Zone or whatever. They
Yeah,
all stand by themselves. But it was the one where like it's this future world where everywhere you go, every interaction you have adds as likes and dislikes or whatever. So it's like a rating system. So like you didn't say sorry to the
right.
guy you just bumped and that gives you a rating, and you tipped bad and that gives you a rating, and it affects, like it physically affects your life because like they might not let you on a plane. Oh no,
Right.
your rating's too low, or like, and
Yeah.
I was like, "Ooh, I could see that. I could see
Yeah.
that. I could see us moving in
Absolutely.
that direction."
Well, halfway there in China with their social credit score, and it's all about whether or not
Yeah,
the
that's what that is.
yeah whether or not the computer processing can keep up with it, and if AI can process it. It's they would. I think they would do it now if they could achieve it technologically, and I
Yeah,
I don't think there would be very much resistance either. Not
yeah,
enough.
yeah. There
Yeah.
would if more people watch Black Mirror, though. Just kidding.
Okay. All right. I don't know. Somehow I feel rebuked.
So, can I tell you about Dickens's last novel?
Yeah.
So, um, I always think of questions I'll never have answered. Like mostly, like I would like to ask my dad something or my mom something. I'll never have that question answered, right? So, I have a question for Charles Dickens on his last novel. It was the novel that was ended up being titled "The Mystery of Edwin Drood," but I don't think that would have been his title. Like I That's actually my biggest question, because the reason why it's called that, well, I can't speak for whoever published it, but I think why they called it that was because he had planned out, he put all of his books out serially, either like once a week or once a month or whatever. And so his last book was meant to be 12 episodes or chapters or whatever. And he died at 6. So he has enough time to, give us an exposition to the novel. There's a main character is like Jasper or something, and he's got this nephew, and they get to know each other. And then I haven't read it for a while, but like, and I only read it once, but like, I think they end up falling in love with the same woman or whatever, and then all of a sudden, Edwin Drood disappears. So the reader's meant to wonder if the uncle, and they had a good relationship, but if the uncle had something to do with Edwin Drood, like dying or being offed or whatever.
Mm.
And so it's called the mystery because the mystery's never solved. It's 6 chapters. It's you don't know what's going to happen. But the cool thing about Dickens and the way he writes is I don't think you're at a loss for reading this book and not knowing the answer.
Mm.
Like you know enough, and it's like a really great cliffhanger that you're never going to get answered. It's like a really great cliffhanger because I always tell my kids get really lazy with writing stories because they just want to sit down and start writing, and I'm like, that's a disaster. Like you have to think about what parts you want in there, think about the parts of the plot. Um, and so the kids that do, they just keep writing and writing and writing and writing, and they can't think of a good ending, and then they just kind of let me write a cliff breaker. And I always tell my students that you got to, if you're going to write a cliffhanger, did I say cliff breaker? You're going to write a cliffhanger. It's got to be, it's hard to write a cliffhanger. It has to be so good. You have to set everything up in such a way that your reader closes your book and they're like, whoa, and their mind is going here and here and here, and they don't know the answer, but they know how it would be this and it would be this and it would be this because
Hmm.
you set it up so well. It doesn't help. They still write and write and write, and
Yeah.
somebody falls off a cliff, and that's the end of it. Because I think they want to challenge me. It's got to be really good, um, or accept the challenge. So anyway, so that's kind of a fun novel.
This essay by Chesterton speaks at length about Edwin
God, you love
Drood.
that guy.
He says,
Wait, are you
uh,
fact checking me?
nope, I had this up. I had this up. I thought maybe I would.
You can fact check me.
I can't. I can't. I'm a man. I can't do two things at once, and not well at least. And I'm doing three poorly. So, but I remember this. He says, what did he say? It's a sort of story which begins by asking a question. In this case, a question about the secret and the sequel of the fate of the hero Edwin Drood. The question will never be answered, for it was cut short by the only thing that could be more dramatic than the death of the hero, the death of the author. Charles Dickens was dead. Yeah, and then he goes on and talks
You're
about
trying to
that.
get me to read more Chesterton, aren't you?
Well, he has a whole book
Yeah.
of this stuff, and I uncovered it while researching for tonight. But
Oh
and I was
yeah.
surprised. I was like, oh, I didn't know. But now you haven't read Chesterton except for one essay and one
I
very
said I've read a
excellent
lot of essays and I have a favorite. What are you talking about?
of
Rewind
that
the tape. I said
Chesterton.
I've read a lot of essays and I have one favorite.
I
But
only
I've
heard
read
that you
one
read
book.
one essay.
No,
Oh, okay, one book.
I've read
All
a
right.
lot. I teach a lot of his essays, and
Oh,
I've got
okay.
one specific favorite.
He's a good essayist. Well, this is not going to be about G.K. Chesterton. Let's stop talking about Chesterton. Go back to Dickens.
Okay.
So, what's the we've touched on the how he was a man of his times in terms of like the anti-Semitism and stuff, but like he's stands above a lot of that, right? The book contained a misogyny, but he was not for it. He was critical of a lot of that. Where do you see Dickens um, being a product of his times, and where do you see him clearly being better than his times?
Um, well, I one of the things that I always find interesting is that he himself in his life was a philanderer. Left his wife for a younger woman or whatever, and children, and but he never writes that into his books, and I find that very
Hmm.
interesting. Like he has pretty faithful couples. Um, yeah, like that's not sleeping around and being with other people isn't really a thing. So I just think that's interesting. You know, I write. I've not published anything, but I write, and so I was kind of wonder, do I try to make my characters I mean one specific thing I've been writing for a while uses I'm using myself a lot, kind of autobiographical. So it kind of makes me wonder, like, did he do that to make himself feel better about himself, or and would I and do I do that? Like, sometimes I think have you read any Orson Scott Card, Ender's Game, all that?
No, which is really weird because I have like 10 of his books on my shelf.
Yeah, so that whole series, there's this one, I think it's the second actually, called ooh, Speaker for the Dead. Speaker for the Dead. And the ender in that book is the speaker for the dead. Like he travels around to planets and basically talks at people's funerals or aliens' funerals, and like tells the truth, you know. And I always thought that I wouldn't like one of those funerals where everybody says, "Oh, she was so great and did everything right." And
Mm.
I'm like, "No, that's weird." Like I would want people to know I was a person who lived and I struggled and I did this wrong and then I got this right um and so I kind of wonder about Dickens, like was he trying to write of what he wished he'd been? And I know that's not a big part of his story, and I'm not making a big deal of that whole thing. And I do think that was a product of the time. If you read a lot of stuff back then, like it's or and our time, what am I talking about? Like it's just a product of every time. Um, but I've always found it interesting that his like like Oliver Twist parents, if I remember right, were like once you find out who they were and what they were just really committed to one another. And so sad that their children, they never got to raise them, because they were really good parents. And oh, I didn't answer your question, but
No, no. But
what do you think?
you poked around a little bit. So, like, what about his belief system? I mean, what was he a Christian, or was he just nominally a Christian, or what do you think?
I don't know. I think. Oh, I hope I don't step on anybody's toes.
You surely will, I'm sure.
Here's what I want to say. I think he's a Christian, like people who are Catholic say they're Catholic. Like I know a lot of Catholics that it's just what they are. Like, and they've even said that. I'm like, oh, no, if you're born Catholic, you're just Catholic. Like that's just what you are.
Yeah.
And it may or may not be like a deep faith or whatever, but it's just what you are. Like maybe the same with like Jewish people too. Like you can't choose that. You just are. So especially in his time, I mean, I don't think he ever, besides the book that I didn't even know about that Paul told me about. I don't know. I guess I've never read about it. I've never read about the subject at all. But I know faith was part of his life. And so I imagine that it was more like that. Like, this is just who you are. You don't really think about it. Like, it's just what you are.
Yeah, it seems like it was just like the background for him. It
Yeah.
wasn't.
Same with like Edgar Allan Poe. Like Edgar Allan Poe was supposed to be, has a lot of Christian references in his stuff and exposes a lot of knowledge that he has, but he was a weird dude, like
Yeah. I guess
I've never read his memoirs to know like what his faith life was like, but
I guess what I'm wondering about is where his sense of moral clarity came from. Like, what was he drawing on to like condemn child labor? I mean, did he view that as morally reprehensible, or just a reality that he didn't like? Do you know?
Child labor is what happened to him. Like
Okay.
his story is child labor. He I think his dad went to jail, and then he ended up having to go work in the. Yes. So there's a really good book called Little Dorrit, Dorrit, and the book is about, it's one of his books, and it's about this dad that goes to jail. And this is where his life kind of shows up a lot. Like back then, and I know this happened in Russia too, like when somebody would get like sent, like Tolstoy or Dostoevsky or Solzhenitsyn, and they'd get sent to, Siberia or whatever, to the gulags or whatever, their family would go too. Mm-hmm. Like they just stay somewhere nearby and try to bring them stuff. Well, that's what happened in England too. So like if your dad or whatever was in jail,
he was in
sometimes you went in too. What?
He was in debtor's prison, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes you went in too. And so like in the novel I just referenced, Little Dorrit, the novel is about exactly that. Dad goes to jail. The family moves into jail with him. And so Little Dorrit is the baby that's born in the jail, in the prison. That's what makes her special in the family. She's born in prison and she grows up there, and she's like part of prison life. Like everybody knows her, and she's a little sweet girl. She's obviously not in jail. She can leave, but she's just there. And so that happened to Dickens, actually. I think it was his dad going to jail. It's either his dad died or dad went to jail. And so he had to go to work, and he worked in like a ink factory, I think, where they had to put labels on things, but he had to, like the family had to eat. And so he had to. And so he's written that, and like I said, in a number of different ways. Like that's in David Copperfield, that's in Great Expectations. Wait, did Pip have to do? I'm trying to think of what. Oh yeah, he had to do some weird child labor stuff when he was younger. Can't remember. Anyway,
have another drink.
I might be mixing up stuff.
Well, you've already excused yourself on that. It's his fault for having the same characters and the same characters. Plot. Yeah.
So one other thing that I like about his novels, and I like to teach, is, to me, he is next to Shakespeare in rhetorical devices, and this is more of his like trademark things. one of the things kids get annoyed with me for is when I praise them for their masterful repetition and then chastise them for being repetitive
Mhm.
or redundant. And so, like, I was telling you in message or whatever that I found out that he got paid by the word recently, and that kind of first bothered me because he is so wordy. But then when I thought about the words he uses and what he does with the language, it's kind of like forgiving Shakespeare for stealing all of those plays. Like, look what he did with the language to make that happen. Like, that's
Mhm.
the art right there. Um, and so, so one example I give my kids is, Dickens will be describing a scene, but he'll use the same word over and over again. And it's not like he doesn't have words, because if you look at all of his books, but he'll purposely use the same word as almost like a bell toll. Like he
Mhm.
wants the reader to get inside that novel and feel it's like a sensory imagery thing to me. Like he'll say, the streets were oppressive, the people were oppressive, the sky was oppressive. It's just like this dong,
Yeah.
dong, dong. So that's really cool. I like when he does that. And the other thing he does is he creates these great characters, and then there's a character in oh, I can't remember his name, in Great Expectations, who he describes his mouth as a like a mail slot. So at some point when he's describing him, he's just like a guy. I mean, you can picture a mouth that's just like a mail slot. Like, there's not a lot of animation on that face. But once he introduces that guy with that characterization, for the rest of the time, he like sneaks this thing in where he says, nothing came out of the mail slot, or like he'll and so he'll like keep referring to it. So if you paid attention to that characterization, you
Yeah.
know what he's doing with that guy's face,
Uh,
and like what's happening. So, and those things, like when I teach Great Expectations this year, one of the things I'm going to have my students do, and I do this with Animal Farm, but they're going to have to pick a character to follow. I mean, they got to read the whole book, but there's one that I want you to take notes on and pay attention to, like all their characterizations, and then write an analysis of that character. And there's so many in Great Expectations that there's one, the rich guy who lives in town that is really mean to Pip until Pip leaves and becomes a gentleman, and then he comes back and he's like overly serving him. Like, uh, Dickens uses such great language to just show how oily and greasy that guy was, like unctuous and
mhm.
obsequious and servile, and just like the characterizations he puts on a character, I think, I don't know, rounds them out actually. Also, I love that in Dickens, a bad character is not always going to be bad. In fact, a lot of bad characters become good, So there's the whole transformation. In fact, I'm going to teach Great Expectations alongside Pygmalion. Have you ever read George Bernard Shaw's Pygmalion?
Long time ago. Yep.
Yeah, like the one where the two guys make a bet that they can turn this. It's what My Fair Lady was based on as
The
well.
Spain
Um,
rain in Spain. Yeah.
yeah, well, I
Yeah.
don't do musicals, but yeah, that one. Um, but Pygmalion was the play that George Bernard Shaw wrote, and so it's transformation, So that's the other thing I love about Dickens is he gives, and maybe that's something he's trying to show himself. Like maybe you don't want to always feel like you're a bad guy, So like just having the come full circle transformation, like we're just not left lacking or seeing the good come out in people. My favorite line from Great Expectations is the uh, the girl that Pip is in love with the whole time. I think her name is Eliza. Um, she's and she ends up marrying somebody else and is a domestic abuse, is beat up by her husband. And when Pip sees her, she says, and she was awful. The whole novel, she's awful. She's like a huge. In fact, there's a song by Alanis Morissette called "All I Really Want," and it brings up Eliza from Great Expectations. Anyway, she's a terrible character. She's really mean. She likes to break people's hearts. She likes to be awful to people. And in this one of the final scenes, which by the way, I believe it was the one he changed when he came out with the last chapter, and the people didn't like it, and so then he wrote a different ending.
Right.
Um, But her line was, I have been bent and broken, but hopefully into a better shape.
Uh,
And I love that sentiment, that you can be terrible and then be good.
I I almost hate to tell you this, but Chesterton was talking about that too, about how responsive
Who's
Dickens
on this
was.
podcast? Is it me or is it him?
No. It's just like it's so wild to me how much of what you've said, and I only read like two of Chesterton's essays, and you've like interwoven a bunch of the same stuff. So you could
Am
be
I
the
getting
next.
credibility for this? Like, is he backing me up at least?
I think so. I think in some ways, I think you just think of it as, you could be the next great critic of Dickens. Just write the book and become famous. I know a publisher. So,
That would work if I ever start my master's.
okay. All right.
That'd be part of that goal,
Yeah.
my dissertation.
So I had a lot of thoughts as you're talking there. And we're going to run out of time. But I would be interested still to know what we'll just ignore the call on my phone over there. Um, what what were his feelings about America? Like he doesn't seem to have liked him.
No. Um, I might be mixing him up with that other French guy that wrote a big bad thing about America, but I think I believe there was a criticism about indulgence, which is funny because I think people would show up here now and say the same thing. Um,
It's one of our best features.
yeah, like maybe like caring about the wrong things or spending money on the wrong things. I mean, he was ravely accepted. Like, in fact, did he die in America? I know he was like speaking to a crowd or reading to a crowd, and he went backstage and he like died. But he was. It might have been.
Let me check the GK Chesterton link again. I'm sorry. Go on.
Um, so, uh, so he was like everybody loved him. I mean, like he was wildly accepted, excitedly accepted. But I mean, if you've lived one place your whole life and then you go to a whole different country, like,
Mhm.
aren't you gonna have that was weird, Like, I don't know if you've ever had that experience. If you remember back to childhood, where your family is the only family, right? So this is all you know. This is how it works. This is what happens. And then you go and you're spending the night or spending at some other family, and something happens that would never happen in your house. I
Yeah.
remember I was at my friend Susie's up the street, and like she like yelled at her mom and told her to get out of her room. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, it's like I just remember the feeling I had inside, like, that's weird, like I could
Yeah.
never do that. So I don't know, maybe it was that. Like he came over to America and was like, that's weird. Like, I don't were we so I mean, the point of colonizing was to like keep our religion. So did we get really into debauchery like very quickly or something like that? Where it would have, I mean, a lot of times when you abstain from
Yeah.
things, we tend to go the other way. So maybe that was it. Yeah, no, I can't remember. I just know that he wasn't, and he wrote a big book that I've not read. It's nonfiction about his review of America.
Hmm. Well, I think what you asked there would be a fun thing to talk about after maybe doing a little bit more research about, like, so why did America have so early this reputation? Um, and I just off the top of my head, I think it's kind of like, there weren't any guardrails built in America. They're being in the process built. And in all these other places in Europe, you had all these different unseen barriers of various traditions. You had the royal house and the royalty, and you had these cultural norms that were kind of unspoken rules that everyone knew that you shouldn't do. And in America, there's just wasn't any of that, and so people were, for better or for worse, themselves. you know,
And a
and
lot of them were criminals. So
right. So And I kind of feel like too in the same vein, and I'm kind of um, just spitballing a little bit. Like uh, American culture is still widely loved throughout the world right now, wherever it's allowed. And as soon as like in India or Pakistan, where things get liberalized and American movies come in, they love them like immediately. Like it's like the if people are able to enjoy themselves, it's the American enjoyment that they choose, right? And then of
Mhm.
course there are movie theaters blown up by the traditionalists or whatnot, and it's reversed. But I wonder if it's just we are the closest to what the world has seen in a long time to just what people do when they're left alone, kind of.
Hmm.
I said I was just spitballing.
You are.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I, I don't know that the, it's going to sound weird, but I don't know that the people that were all excited about Dickens and wanting to see him were smart necessarily.
Mm.
I think he was just popular, like back then. Um, and no internet, no movies, no TV, just plays and reading
Hmm.
newspapers and
Right.
getting episodes. Like, and I'm probably very, very similar to now, where like I always question my daughters about like when they'll come up with an idea, and I want to know where that came from. And often the answer is, well, everybody's talking about it, or
Mm.
like whatever version they know of whatever, it came off of TikTok. And I kind of insultingly say, and I wouldn't say this in front of them,
Uh-huh.
because they're very smart and very thoughtful, but I do think a lot of their ideas are coming from somebody else. And that makes
Hmm.
me really sad. Like people don't just come up with their own ideas anymore. It's just something everybody's talking about. I'll give you an example. One of my daughters was laughing about, my daughters are 26 and almost 24. They're professional people out in the workplace, very smart, very intelligent. But my daughter, Kara, said she was laughing about President Trump. I hate to bring up President Trump. She was laughing at President Trump throwing or having a military parade on his birthday. And I said, no, he didn't. Or planning a military parade for his birthday. I said, no, he didn't. She goes, yeah, he did. And I was like, there's always a military parade on Flag Day. Like that's the day it is.
Yeah.
President Biden made that a decree a couple of years ago. Like that, but she just heard that same thing over and over again. And by the way, it wouldn't be far fetched,
Right. It's
like that is
plausible.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, very plausible. But I knew that she hadn't looked at it for herself. I knew that people were saying the same thing over and over again. And so like it was probably very similar. You get in your little groups in colonized America, um and everybody's talking about this new writer. And then
Hmm.
he came all the way from England. And yeah, so I could see, I don't think they were necessarily smart. I think they were following the crowd back then.
So Wolf Smasher says that he also lacks such imagination that he was forced to have the exact same conversation with somebody about the Trump Flag Day parade.
Like
Sorry, OJ, I
honestly,
just
whenever
uncalled
I
for.
swear, whenever everybody's saying something, I always have to look for the sleight of hand. Like, wait, wait, wait,
Yeah.
wait, wait. If the magician's trying to get me to look this way, I want to see what all is going on. Like, if everybody's going one way, I feel like it's probably not true, but I'm more likely to think that there's something wrong with it if everybody's saying it. There's something wrong with that.
Yeah, we could talk about that for a long time, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And before we even started this, just for the record, you're on the hook for more podcasts because you had so many things that you wanted to talk about. It was so hard to just find one.
We
And
can
every
talk about
one
a lot
of
of
them,
stuff.
I was like, yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Yeah, let's do that. So we will do more and it'll be fun.
Well,
Um,
and originally at one time you wanted me to talk about starting a brewery, which I really don't think I'd be able to talk about for a long time because I'm just married to the brewery. Didn't really
yeah,
do
but
anything.
nobody else has a brewery, so
But I am trying to get Dickens names into
Yeah,
my
yeah.
brewery.
Hold
I have
on a
suc
minute. Okay.
I have succeeded with we originally opened with a collaboration with another brewery. We had a Tale of Two Ales.
Okay.
Um, we currently have a Pickwick Pilsner, which is actually a pretty it's from the Pickwick Papers, his novel, which is essentially a book about men in bars drinking beer and talking about writing. Like that's what the whole book's about.
Huh.
Um, and um, I have campaigned for. There's a novel called Martin Chuzzlewit, WIT, which is the German word for wheat and for beer, and so I wanted Martin Guzzlewit. I haven't won that one over yet. Um, David Hopperfield, my our brewer. There's not like a trademark for names for brews.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you can use a name that another brewery uses
Yeah.
without. We can't do that for the macro, but you can micro. You can do that. And so our brewer found out that there's a brewery somewhere that has David Hopperfield, and so he doesn't want it just because somebody else has it. And I have to tell you, when we started this process, I came with a prop. I campaigned so hard. There's a brewery in Great Expectations.
Okay.
It's called, is that backwards?
Nope.
Satis House Brewing.
Okay.
Satis for meaning enough in Greek, right? What a beautiful name for a brewery, Satis House Brewing.
And what you're saying is you could not get that name, is what you're saying.
No, we could. There are like different ones over in England, but we could actually get that one. However, everybody thinks if they only hear the name, it sounds like saddest, SADDES. That was the sticking point for everyone. And
That's
so I
funny.
lost my.
Well, maybe, I mean, people might not be able to figure out what the name of the brewery that you're married to is. So why don't you spell it out for us?
Balanced Rock
There it
Brewing. Oh,
is.
why we named it that?
Well, no, I mean, it's on your shirt. I just wanted everyone to know that I have allowed shameless self promotion, but you don't view it as self promotion because it's not your
No,
brewery.
no. He said he told me before we started. He told me before we started that I could make a pitch. I'm like, I don't want to make a pitch. Just come. If you're
Yeah.
down here, come see us.
Yeah.
No,
So,
we have really good stuff. We actually came out with we tapped a quad today. I've never liked quads. We tapped a quad today, and they did accept my name of it. It is the Quixotic quad.
okay.
But I got a lot of fighting on it because people don't know who Don Quixote is, and so
I don't know what a quad is.
oh, it's like one of the Belgian, like there's a triple quad or like different versions, depending on
Yeah.
how the Belgian monks made the beer.
And you don't
See, this
think
is
you
why I
can
can't
talk
talk for
about
9.
what you've already said more intelligent things about breweries than I know. I
I
think
can't
you.
talk.
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, what are you drinking there? Is that a
This is
macro?
Leinenkugel's
Mm,
classic.
that's respectable.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. It's not like that uh, Pabst or Miller
No.
crap that's not even doesn't
I
even
would have
count.
also expected, who makes the spotted pig? What's that
Uh,
brewery up in Wisconsin?
New Glarus.
I would also have accepted New
Yeah, New
Glarus.
Glarus
I
is
got
all
some of
right
that in the
too.
fridge. My brother brings it down every time he
Yeah.
drives down here.
So you've invited people to the brewery, but you haven't said where here is.
It is, ooh, I don't know the address. It's in the Colony. That's the name of the town, the Colony, Texas. It's north of Dallas on 121. It is like 10 minutes from our house. It's probably about 20 minutes ish from downtown Dallas. So it's on the
Okay.
north side, really easy to get to.
And when did you guys open?
We had our soft open in March of this year, and we just had our grand opening on what are we looking at? June 6th. June 6th
Okay.
was our we had it. We did a Band of Brewers beer that day for June 6th it's called Band of Brewers. That was a pecan coffee stout. It's just delicious. We still have that one.
Yeah. So one of our viewers has posted the address for you. including
Thanks.
the hours.
Thanks.
So I still think we should do a podcast about the brewery. We can find a way somehow that you're comfortable with it
Well,
because
here's the thing. I would
yeah,
want to invite James to be part of it, but I
yeah.
don't know. I don't know. You better get ready because that
Why?
guy,
Well, I have not met your husband yet,
he's
so
pretty wacky, man. I mean, I'm saying everybody would enjoy it, but we just don't know what's going to happen.
well,
He always
we,
tells me that he's like, you should let me sub for your class. I'm like, oh God, no. I mean, they
that's
would love it. My kids
yeah,
would love it, but no.
that's funny. Okay, so it occurs to me that I have not done my customary, hey, people, do you have any questions or comments? Do you have a few minutes more to go so
Sure.
I can?
I
All
told you
right,
I got
so
ready for my husband.
okay. So we do have 4 or 5 people watching live. Bless their hearts. Does anyone have any questions or comments about G.K. Chesterton or I'm sorry, I meant Dickens?
Oh, they can ask you. I mean, you want to talk about that guy.
It's not my fault the guy had written so much about Dickens. It just
You're right.
came up in my research. Anyway, so I will give a minute or two for people to post questions or comments, and I'll relay them to you if they
Okay,
come
because I
in.
can't see them.
Right. So while we wait for that, what were some of the other famous authors that he like socialized with? Like I know a lot of them did at the time.
Ooh, man, I wish you were asking me that about a bunch of different authors. Who did he hang with? Ah, man, off the top of my head, I usually have those kind of pictures in my head when I read that. I can kind of picture like Hemingway and all the authors he hung out
Hmm.
with when he lived in Paris. Like I can think of those, but yeah, I don't know.
Was he? Did Lewis Carroll hang out with him?
I
He
don't think
was.
he was part of. Well, I don't know.
There
I
was
don't
a
know.
big circle of them, or several interlocking circles. I know Mark
Yeah,
Twain was involved, but I don't remember all the connections. Someone should write a book just about all the connections because
yeah, connections. Yeah,
I'd be very curious to know who informed or influenced who or what.
right.
We can kind of do that with the Inklings, but
Yeah.
that's
Oh
about
yeah,
as far
yeah.
as we go.
Hemingway has a book of essays that were published posthumously. I'm pretty sure. About his time in Paris, is called A Movable Feast, and so like yeah, tons of authors. F. Scott Fitzgerald, like just
Hmm.
regular stories about them hanging out together, and like
Right.
not even about writing, but just about. And I remember like in that book or in one of the essays, like everybody being super. I was happy to read everybody being super intimidated by Gertrude Stein. Like the description that he gives of going to visit Gertrude Stein and just like you didn't cross that lady, and if she looked at you some kind of way, you were out. I mean, like it was kind of fun.
That sounds fun. Well, no one has posted questions or comments. We gave them ample opportunity. And I do like to keep things on schedule. So I'm going to wrap it up. If you could just hold on for a minute while I sign off, and then I'll come back and we'll just chat real quick before we
Okay.
say goodnight. All right. So let's say goodbye to Jill for a second there. All right. So thanks for watching. We were kind of all over the map, but um, I kind of expected that. Probably anyone who watches this podcast, anyone who has watched this podcast, already knows that we're often all over the map. So nothing new there. Next week, it's possible that one of the topics is going to be the new assisted suicide and abortion up until birth laws that was passed in England. It's kind of on my mind right now. Um, so yeah, that could happen. I have a guest. I'm hoping will get back to me on that. Um, have another guest. We're going to talk about hopefully volunteer firefighting. I'm trying to get that guy in the studio. So we have some interesting things coming up, and hope that you will hang out. Now, as far so what Jill doesn't realize is that I can hear her, but nobody else can. It's just me. Uh, So but I can still see her, but I'm not looking at her, which made her like a she's yeah, she's a disembodied voice. There she is. Okay. Um where was I? Oh yeah. So her question was, is it every Thursday? And I've been trying to do twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, but we've had to do some Saturdays, and we have to change it up just a little bit. But usually if you follow us on social media, you're going to find out a good 24 hours before. So what you have to do is you have to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell. You know the drill. That's what we need for this podcast to keep on growing. And if you've listened this far, I have to say I really appreciate your time, because as someone who does not spend a lot of time watching other people's videos, I really appreciate when people watch mine. So thank you. As a final thing, I'm on Patreon now. I have no idea how to use it, like zero. But there's a link in the description, and if anybody wants to be the first, so that I can find out what the hell is happening, that would be greatly appreciated, because I don't know how it works and I want to find out, but it's there. Also, we do publish quite a few Dickens books. Only one or two of that I've really read very well. I have links in the description to our editions that we publish, and the Christmas Carol is a very popular one, but I think some of our other ones are really attractive too. And we don't do any of that abridged crap. If we're gonna do a reprint, it's gonna be the original, including all of the N words. So that's just the way we roll over here. So that's it. Thanks for watching. This is the Gutencast. My name is Anthony Horvath. All the links that you need to stay in touch are in the description. And with that, I bid you good night.